Hello, and welcome to a deeper PTE. Here we allow ourselves to explore the far out, the unproven, the religious, spiritual, and controversial. We also go more in depth on topics not suited for the main channel. This channel's content is a blend of facts, opinion, speculation, and theory. Nothing presented should be construed as legal or medical advice. Always consult with your physician for all health and medical decisions. And finally, please do your own reading and research and come to your own fact based conclusions. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome and good evening to you all. Today is Sunday, February 20th, 2022, and you are now watching A Deeper PTE. I am your host, PTE, and this is a highly requested show. This is a highly requested show, and I am so happy to bring it to you all this evening. Hello to everybody in the chat. Shout out your generation. Are you the silent generation? If so, you're kind of old, but welcome. Are you a boomer? Are you Gen X? Are you a millennial? Are you Gen Z? Or are you the newest one that they've categorized Generation Alpha? So shout out your generation. I'm here to represent the millennials, who I think people still think are young. We're not that young anymore, y'all. Like most millennials are middle-aged. Well, not middle-aged, but we're approaching middle age. But anyway, welcome everyone. Welcome to the show. Great to have you guys. So this is a show that was born during one of my what I call haircut updates. Most of you know what the haircut is, why we're doing updates on the haircut. So I won't get into it here. If you're slightly confused, then just be sure to check out the channel and you will figure it out very fast what the haircut is. Okay. So it came up during a haircut update show when we were talking about Whoopi Goldberg and how she managed to get herself in trouble in recent weeks. She's back on the show too, by the way. Did you guys see that? So I guess what she said wasn't that bad because she's got her job back. She got suspended for 2 weeks. Now she's got her job back. But part of what got her suspended was her take on the Holocaust. And, she caught a lot of backlash for that. So then when she was doing one of her apology sessions with Stephen Colbert, she was talking to him and she said, with her arms kind of slightly folded, and this is me paraphrasing, I made a mistake and I'll try my best not to think that way again. And when she said that, it just sent chills down my spine. And during the show, I actually said, I was like, whoa, that boomer obstinance. Man, that boomer obstinance is something else. And that term, when I said that, really resonated with you guys, boomer obstinance. And so I threw out the idea that I might do a show on it, and you all were like, yes, please, yes to the show. So that's where the show was born. And the purpose of tonight's show and bringing out this term and talking about it a little bit is not to bash the boomers. The boomers were very upset a couple of years ago when that phrase, okay, boomer, was born. And I even did a show on it, On Permission to Exist, that I think I still have public, but I'm not sure. I may have unlisted that one, but it might still be public. But we did a show on it and everything. And at the time, OK Boomer was kind of reflecting on how many boomers or old people or people of a certain mentality, how they treat younger people, how they view younger people, the conclusions that they come to about younger people. And OK Boomer was kind of like the response to that. It's like, hey, the economy is really tough. Then the boomer would say something like, well, get a job. And the person will respond, OK, boomer. Okay. Or, man, I really want to buy a house, but it's been very difficult. Oh, well, you just need to save your money and work hard. Okay, boomer. All right. So that's kind of where that phrase was born and kind of what that means. It's a retort acknowledging that a certain subset of the population thinks a certain way to the point where you can actually create their own little catchphrase. Damn it, I'm trying to turn on this light. There we go. We can create their own little catchphrase because it's so common. The thought process is so common. The thought termination is so common. So that's where it came from. So it really got me to thinking about this generation, why they're like this, how they came to be like this. So I'm going to attempt to answer a few of those questions. And if any boomers happen to be watching, we certainly want your insight and opinion because we want to know what happened. Because do understand that most of the millennials are children of boomers. So a lot of us have been directly exposed to you guys. And we didn't necessarily walk away with the most positive of experiences. So we're trying to figure out why that is. What about the generation itself made that so? Okay. So we're going to do that. And we are going to start off with just a little bit of a definition. So the word that we're using tonight to describe this behavior out of the boomers is obstinance. Obstinance is the act of displaying obstinacy, bullheadedness, stubbornness, sticking firmly to your viewpoints or desires, inflexible and rigid. Okay. So that is the definition of obstinance. Oh, we're going to take a look at that. It's actually a perfect segue. So that is what obstinance means. It's a certain stubbornness, bullheadedness. Some of you have dealt with this directly. I know I have. And it is something serious. It is like trying to move a mountain. And, it'll really leave you feeling some kind of way. It really will. It really will leave you wondering, like, do you love me? So that's obstinance. The act of displaying obstinacy, bullheadedness, stubbornness, sticking firmly to your viewpoints or desires, inflexible and rigid. Okay. So the age group that we are analyzing are the baby boomers. And the baby boomers were known as the me generation. So I think that that is our first clue. I think that might be our first hint as to why they are the way that they are. They are the me generation. They are one of the largest cohorts, if not the largest cohort right now in the United States, with 79.9 million baby boomers in the United States. They represent 29% of the labor force. They own 63% of all US financial assets, 63%. And then 10% of all marketing dollars goes to this group. So I pulled this from a marketing website, and they were trying to convince people to market to them more because they're such a massive group and they have all this money. They have the majority of the money, but so little marketing dollars go towards them. And then that thing at the bottom says boomers have more disposable income than any other generation. I can't see it. My little thing is blocking. So I actually can't see what that last word says. Hold on one second. Let me just go to another screen. Oh, than any other generational group. Okay. So they have a lot of money. A lot of money. They own the majority of all US financial assets. So this is going to include houses and homes. So now I'm starting to answer one of my own questions, which is why is home ownership so difficult? Well, because it's on lockdown by a certain generation, has it on complete lock right now. And I don't think they're very interested in making it easier for my generation to enter into the market. If I had to guess, I would think one of the issues this group is struggling with is this may be one of the first groups that's truly struggling with their mortality. Whereas I think probably the silent generation, who would be my grandparents, their parents, probably were a little bit not okay with their mortality, but they just accepted it. You know what I mean? They didn't expect to live a very long time, and they didn't expect to live forever either. I think the boomers may be the first generation that is kind of like, oh no, this is going to come to an end someday. It's like, yeah, And the reason I think that, part of the reason I think that, is so many of them, at least that I've been exposed to. I can't speak of the boomers that you know, so you guys let me know in the chat. But so many of them act like life goes on forever, and they act like there's no end to this thing. And if you didn't think life ended, imagine how much differently you would behave if you believed life goes on forever, that there's no such thing as like dying or death. Then you're going to treat life very differently. You're not going to treat life like it's precious. You're not going to treat life like it's temporary. You're not going to treat life like you really need to do all that you can do right now, because we may not get another go at this. But they act like we're going to be here forever. And so, what that translates into in terms of relationships is they don't fix problems. They're not interested in fixing problems in relationships. They're not interested in building legacies or building generational wealth. Some boomers are, some of them are, but a lot of them aren't. And I think it's because they don't realize that they are the adults now. So, where that disconnect happened, I'm still not 100% sure. I did do some research prior to the show, but I just couldn't figure out where they get, basically, where do they get off? Basically, where do you get off? Like, where did this arrogant attitude come from? And I think, well, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. So we'll talk a little bit more about where in the world this arrogant attitude of theirs came from. All right. So the next thing I want to do is share with you, I think, one of the most perfect stories and one of the most perfect examples of boomer obstinance that I've ever seen. Okay. Now, I want to do a disclaimer before I share the story. It is sad. It's kind of tragic. People end up not being alive anymore by the end of the story, but there's no violence involved. So, violence did not bring about their not being alive anymore. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. And hopefully it'll make more sense by the time um the show is concluding, or by the time I finish the story rather. But it's one of the most perfect stories. Also, the person that we're dealing with in this particular story, she is famous. She was an actress in The Walking Dead, and it involves her parents. So you may have heard about it, but I didn't really see it in a lot of different places on the news or in the news. So I am going to share it with you here. So this actress's name, the young lady with the red hair, her name is Alicia Witt, and she played on The Walking Dead. All right. And what happened with her is her parents were found deceased in their home, and they were believed to have been passed away by hypothermia, which is extreme cold. And she came out to let people know that she had not been neglecting her parents or refusing to help them. That, as a matter of fact, she tried to help them many times, but essentially they refused. So, what we're going to read first is just the news story. So, I'm getting this from the dailymail.com, and I printed it out because it's very, very lengthy. The way they did this article, I think a bot wrote it. I really do. So I didn't want to share the article through the screen, so I just printed it out. It was published January 25th, 2022. And it says, Walking Dead actress Alicia Witt has broken her silence after the shocking death of her parents, who were found dead inside their home in Massachusetts, revealing that they refused her help and had not let her inside the home for over a decade. The star's parents, Robert Witt, 87, and Diane Witt, 75, reportedly died from hypothermia a month ago after their heat went out in their dilapidated home, but Witt said it was not because she didn't offer to help. The star said that a detective had told her over the phone that her parents were found dead after she placed a welfare call when she became concerned she had not heard back from them. The elderly couple was suspected to have died from hypothermia, a dangerous drop in body temperature caused by prolonged exposure to cold after one of them was found with a coat on. But their health had been in decline for a while as her father was fighting cancer and her mother had Parkinson's disease. The couple was found in their home a day before Christmas when temperatures were hitting the teens at night. Authorities said the Witts were found without any signs of trauma, but a space heater was found inside the home that needed repairs and that their furnace was malfunctioning. Police, alongside an unidentified relative, checked on the couple around December 24th. The relative had reported, the relative had reportedly told authorities that they had loaned the couple a space heater after their furnace went out 1 week prior. In addition, no obvious signs of trauma were found on the bodies, and no traces of poisonous gases such as carbon monoxide were detected during a subsequent inspection. There were no signs of foul play. It's under investigation, police said. The reclusive couple reportedly kept to themselves and had not often been seen by neighbors. The neighbors also said the couple rarely answered the door. In the last 4 years, we haven't seen them at all, said a neighbor. The neighbor also said the Witts have been having heating problems since 2018 and had declined an offer to fix it and saw someone from the state dropping off food weekly to the couple. Court records also showed that the couple did not have cable, television, or a computer in their home. The couple had lived in Worcester, about 50 miles east of Boston, for decades, according to the reports, and authorities have yet to confirm the exact cause of death. An autopsy was conducted. Now, that was the news report. Now, here's the part I really, really want you to hear. The part I want you to hear is the statement released by Alicia Witt regarding her parents, okay? And it says, "It still doesn't feel real. It's been a month since I got scared, not having heard back from them, and called to have them checked on. Waiting, phone in hand, praying fervently that the next call would be from them, angry I'd gotten someone else involved. Knowing as soon as I heard the detective's voice on the other line that they were gone. Knowing I would never hear their voices again. Beginning the rest of my life of finding them on the breeze, in a song, or in a dream. I am deeply grateful for the gift of having been able to quietly travel to Worcester earlier this month for a beautiful service and burial, to mourn and to celebrate them in total privacy. I will forever be indebted to Mercadente Funeral Home for going to great lengths to make this possible. Thank you also to all those who have reached out with your memories about my parents. They were brilliant educators, deeply kind, curious, intuitive, wise, young at heart, and funny. There will never be enough adjectives to describe them. The circumstances around my parents' sudden passings have become fodder for press, and there are some misconceptions rolling around, understandably so. This is very delicate for me to write because I'm wanting to honor their privacy, which they held so tightly. There's an awful irony in the fact that, because of the very lengths they went to in order to protect their privacy in life, that privacy has been stripped away in death. I never imagined I would have to talk about this publicly, much less amidst overwhelming floods of grief. I hadn't been allowed inside my parents' home for well over a decade. Every time I offered to have something repaired for them, they refused to allow workers in their house. I begged, cried, tried to reason with them, tried to convince them to let me help them move, but every time they became furious with me, telling me I had no right to tell them how to live their lives, and that they had it all under control. It was not for a lack of trying on my part or the part of other people who loved them. My parents were not penniless. They were fiercely stubborn, beautifully original souls, and with that, they made choices that I could not talk them out of. I did help them in all the ways I could, in all the ways that they would let me. I struggle as much as I helped with what else I could have done. Short of petitioning the court system for taking control of two otherwise very sharp, very independent, very capable adults. They were a united, intertwined, indivisible force determined to do things their own way. Knowing they had each other, battling them the way I would have had to in order to do this truly felt like it would have destroyed them. I had no idea that their heat had gone out. I will never understand how or why they made the choice not to tell me this, not to let me help them with this. My heart is broken. And even if I could have had a crystal ball and looked into the future, if I could have said to them, "You're going to break my heart and the hearts of all of those who love you, with a worst case scenario ending if you don't let us help you," I still think they would have made the same choices. They weren't willing to make different ones. Our last words to each other were, "I love you." That part was simple, never in doubt. They loved me so, and I loved them so. Okay. So that was the statement from Alicia Witt. And I feel like there was so much in this statement for us to break apart and break down. And I felt like this was the perfect example of boomer obstinance for this show. Okay. And I do just want to show you guys real quick what I was reading from, just in case you're curious or just in case you go looking for it. Here is the article that I was reading from. Okay. In the Daily Mail, published January 25th, 2022. All right. So, a couple of different things to pull out of here. First of all, I 100% believe her because a lot of people I don't think have ever actually gone through this. So, here's the best way that I could put it to you. When you are dealing with a set of people who are engaging in what we call boomer obstinance, there's no amount of money that could ever make them change the way that they are. And here's what I mean by that. You could suddenly come into a lot of money. You could become rich, famous. Maybe you'll hit the lotto, right? Some of you have families that you'd want to help, and the money would actually help them. Like the money would actually do something for them. Like if you bought them a new house, they'd move out of theirs, they'd move into the new house. Or if you offered to fix their house up, they'd be more than happy. They'd step to the side and let you do all the repairs or whatever. Then there are another set of people who, in spite of all that money, wouldn't let you do anything. Anything. If you bought them a new house, they wouldn't move into it. If you offered to make repairs on their house, they wouldn't allow it. They would never schedule the time or make the time for it. If you offered maybe to pay for something health related, maybe they needed a very expensive surgery or something like that, they wouldn't take you up on it. If you bought them a bunch of new clothes, new wardrobe, new shoes, they wouldn't wear any of them. And so, like, man, when I read her story, I was like, oh God, I relate so heavily. So I was thinking through, like, there's really a topic I want to cover with you guys. I'd cover it on permission to exist, but I would put it behind a paywall because it's private. And it's one of those things where I really feel like we need to talk about it, but I just don't want it on the public streets of YouTube. But, I think I am finally ready to talk about my parents. And I want to do that on permission to exist. And I need to set up memberships. So y'all got to tell me what emojis you want. Oh my God, for that channel. But anyway, I can't tell you how strongly I relate to this girl, her situation. And I will. Like, I'll tell you one day how strongly I relate. But yeah, it's extreme pride. There's an extreme pride there that makes it impossible to learn, love, grow, change anything. And once you realize what you're dealing with, it's both very, very sad, but it's also freeing at the same time because you spend so much of your life as a child of someone who displays these characteristics, trying to fix it, trying to figure out what will get through. What can I say? What can I do that will actually crack the ice? And the short answer is nothing. As you can see in this story, The short answer is nothing. I believe her when she says she tried to help. And what she was basically saying was she could have gotten the courts involved, but battling them the way that she would have needed to, she said it felt like it would have destroyed them. And I wrote off to the side, it did. Destruction was in their future one way or the other. They were either going to destroy themselves or they were going to be destroyed by the courts. Mattify is acting like a robot again tonight. I don't know what goes on with this baby child. Some nights he is so normal. And then some nights it is just like he bots out on me. I don't get it. Mattify, go plug in. Mattify, I want you to unplug, power off, and power back on, okay? So I relate. She didn't want to destroy them in the court system because that's the type of stubbornness and pride you're dealing with. It's the type of stubbornness and pride that makes caretakers quit. So you know how sometimes when people get older, they need a caretaker, to take care of them at the house. They don't need to be at an old folks' home. They need to be, they can live at home. They just need a little extra help. They're the type of people who make caretakers quit. All right. So I wanted to bring y'all this story. And then there were a few things I wanted to pull out from her letter that I thought was important. She said she hadn't been allowed inside her parents' home for well over a decade. I believe that to be true. And they also refused to allow workers in their house. I believe that to be true as well. And it actually reminded me of a comment that was left on the video that I did about the narcissist who declared that she was going to wear shoes in your house, even if your house was a shoes off house. This comment was left on that video on Permission to Exist. And it says, my narc mother refused to visit me for over 30 years. She's dead now and never did see my new place because in 1987, I sold my car to renovate my home. I only had one room with carpet, but mom insisted in going in there, uninvited and with her shoes on. I asked her to please remove her shoes because of the new carpet. She never came again, nor to the next 3 homes that I owned. My narc sister did come to see my newest home, went room to room. Oh, wait. Okay. So she closes out talking about her narc sister. The part I really wanted you to hear about was the mother who she invited to her newly renovated house and asked her to remove her shoes for just one room, not even the whole entire house, just one room. She wanted the shoes removed. And her mother was so angry at that request, she never came over again and didn't come over again for another 30 years. That's that boomer obstinance that we're talking about. Because her daughter asked her not to come in one room with shoes on. I don't know what it is with these boomers and these shoes, but they are something else when it comes to these shoes, man. And just showing respect to you. That's one of the hardest things for them to do. Show respect to you and show respect for your home and your things. You know what I mean? Like it's so challenging for them because I think in their minds, they view their children differently than other people or normal people would view their kids. They literally view their kids as like your subject, like king, queen, and then you're the subjects to the king and queen. You're the subject, you're the peasant. So why is the peasant asking the king, or why is the peasant asking the queen to remove their shoes in this peasant's home? You're a peasant. You don't even have any money. You could barely buy this house. And you want us to take our shoes off in it as if it's a mansion? It's almost a shack. And how dare you ask me to take my shoes off in a shack, you peasant? Like it is a real high-mindedness. Yeah, peasant and servant and property. Absolutely. You're their peasant, you're their servant, you're their property. You will always be less than in their eyes. Always, always will you be less than in their eyes. There's nothing you can do. There's no career field that you can take. There's no level of success that will ever elevate you in these people's eyes, ever. Okay. So then here, let me navigate off this. Let's go. let's go there. That's good. There's nothing you can do, so you can stop trying, okay? Live to satisfy your own personal goals that you set for yourself. But if you're trying to impress your parents, you might as well, your boomer parents, you might as well stop because you're never going to, okay? Then the same person left a different comment under someone else's comment, someone who came along and was like, "Oh, I forgot what they said," but they were basically like, "Oh, who cares?" kind of situation. So the same person wrote back under their comment, "It has everything to do with narcissism." So I think that original comment said something like, "What does this have to do with narcissism?" Or "This has nothing to do with narcissism." Like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? You think someone saying to you, "I'm not taking my shoes off in your house," is not narcissistic? Okay. So this person responded and they said, "It has everything to do with narcissism. You just have not encountered this aspect of it. I have experienced this situation from my abusive narc mom, and it became a huge issue with her to the point where she refused to visit me. She did not respect me. She did not respect my home. You need to understand it has nothing to do with shoes and floors and everything to do with battle of wills, ownership and control, and lack of respect. My narc mother said, 'You will never win against me, my dear. My will is stronger than yours.'" Chills, chills. And I think I'm going to pull that out and put that in the description box. This has everything to do with a battle of wills, ownership and control, and a lack of respect. And her mother said to her, "You will never win against me, my dear. My will is stronger than yours." Boomer, obstinance. Okay, Mattify, I'm putting you in timeout because you botting out on me tonight. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because we're in different time zones, the sun has gone down and the frequency is affecting your brain waves. I don't know. But you're on timeout for now, okay? So that's exactly precisely what it is. Battle of wills, ownership, control, and a lack of respect. What is boomer obstinance? It's a battle of wills, ownership and control, and a lack of respect. Summed up by, "You will never win against me, my dear. Your will is stronger. My will is stronger than yours." And in many ways, their will is stronger. And here's why I think that is. I think their will is stronger because, number one, it's been growing longer. So before you even realized that you were in a battle of wills, your parent, your boomer obstinate parent, was already in that battle. You understand? They were in the battle the day that you were born. So it took some years for you to even discover that you were in a fight. It took some years. Like, and when you realize you're in a fight, you're like, "Wait a minute, we're at war? I didn't think we were at war. I thought we were cool with each other. I thought we were cool. We're in a battle? Really?" And it's very hard to believe at first, and it's very hard to come to terms with. But once you do, it's helpful. Okay. The battle of wills, ownership. Okay. So I own you. So to them, that means something. Control, which speaks for itself, and a total lack of respect. A total lack of respect. They just don't respect you. You're like nothing to them. So some people look at their children and they see everything. Some people look at their children and they see nothing. You're nothing to them. And that doesn't mean that you are nothing. It just means you're nothing to them. You'll never be as great as they are. Never. You'll never be great. So now that you know that, you can stop trying. Stop trying to be great. Now, I still actually wasn't finished breaking apart her letter. So let me go back really quick. Said she begged, cried, and tried to reason with them. I believe that. She said they became furious with her, telling her she had no right to tell them how to live their lives. Truth. Like, I'm so grateful to Alicia for writing this letter because so often when people pass away, all you hear is they were wonderful people. They lit up the room. They would have given the shirt off their back. They were always there to help everybody. and help anyone with anything. That's all you ever hear when people die. You never hear anything other than that. So for her to open up and be honest about what the relationship was like I don't think she realizes how many people she's probably helping by being honest for once, like for telling the truth for once in kind of an obituary situation. So I believe it all. Sounds 100% correct of the especially the furious part. Especially the furious part. She said that they were fiercely stubborn. Boomer obstinance. Fiercely stubborn. That they made choices that I could not talk them out of. Yep. Hmm. Yeah. 100%. And that she did help them in all the ways that they would let her help them. Now, I thought this was very powerful. She said that they were a united, intertwined, indivisible force determined to do things their own way. Just pure, uncut narcissism. And I'm not calling her parents narcissists. I don't know them other than this situation. This is all I know about them. But it very much matches the way that narcissists behave and the way that a lot of boomers behave as well. Determined to do things their own way, an indivisible force, united and intertwined. And what that made me think of was our People of the Lie episode, I think number 6, entitled The Odd Couple on Permission to Exist. So we did a whole show analyzing that book, and one chapter was, well, the theme of that show was the odd couple. And it was talking all about how like evil finds each other and like joins up and links up and how that plays out or whatever. I'll link that for you once this show is over. But it made me think of that. And then I wrote here that their refusal cost them their lives, basically an implosion. So essentially, they refused help until the bitter end. They refused love and refused care and concern until the bitter end. And I think one of the saddest things when you're dealing with people like these, when you're dealing with narcissists in general, is you already kind of know how the story ends. So when you're dealing with people who aren't narcissistic, don't have those characteristics about them, you don't really know how your story is going to end. Not because they're unpredictable, but because they're not so predictable that you know what each day is going to look like day after day after day. But when you're with a narcissist or someone displaying narcissistic traits, you already know how the story is going to end. You already know. You've already lived that day before. You've lived it many, many, many times in a row because basically they don't change. They refuse to change. So the day they lived yesterday is the day that they're going to live today, is the day that they're going to live tomorrow. So you've pretty much already experienced the end with them. And it's kind of sad to know that this relationship is not going to go any further than this. Like this relationship, this is the most it'll ever be. The most. This is we've maxed out, basically. Our relationship has maxed out. Like for those of you who are married, hopefully you're not married to a narcissist. So I'll say it like that. For those of you who aren't married to narcissists, imagine your relationship already being maxed out. Like you already know what tomorrow is going to look like, what next year is going to look like. You already know. So essentially you've already experienced the end. And it's very, 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 very sad to know that there's nothing more than this. This is it. This is what they chose. This is what they settled upon. This is what they've decided to be our story. This is what our story is going to be. How very sad. You don't want to write a different story. You don't want to try to write a different ending. Nope. This is it. So for some of you, the story ended like in 1999. Some of your story ended in 2000. Some of your stories ended in 2006. Some of y'all stories ended in the 80s. But whenever your story ended, it ended. And now it's just like literally just like a skipped record. You're just skipping that day until the actual final end. And when that actual final end comes, all you'll be able to do is look and reflect on the waste of life, the waste of time, the waste of opportunity, the waste of a chance to create memories and do all kinds of stuff, you know what I mean, as a family, like the waste of it all. Like for some people, when they pass away, their passing is going to be a tragedy all by itself, just because of who they were as people, who they were to you, and all that. Other people's passing is going to be a tragedy because of all the waste. Because when you really stop and think about the lives some people have to go through, then you look at other people's lives and they really didn't have the burdens that others have had to go through. And yet they wasted every single day that they were given. They wasted all the time that they were given. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's a top 10 tragedy, in my opinion. Just a life that was not well spent, well lived. You know what I mean? Like you didn't try out different things. But again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying in the very beginning, which was they act like life goes on forever. They act like there's no end. And think about how you would behave if, even if at minimum life lasted 1,000 years. So if life lasted 1,000 years and you're only 40 years old, you're probably going to behave way differently than if life lasts for 100 years and you're 40 years old. You see what I mean? But these folks behave as if life goes on forever, not even with 1,000-year cap on it. To them, life just doesn't end. It's one big party and one big joke until it's over for real. And then it's like a shock, you know? And again, like I said at the start of the show, I feel like this generation is struggling with their mortality more than any other generation. And okay, so now we can kind of start to get into some of the reasons for that. What are some of the reasons for that? So, for one, let's start with, since I just brought up the mortality, let's start with that. First of all, this generation, someone asked for the years. They were born between the years 1945 and 1964. In the United States, this was a time frame of high economic growth and general prosperity. The civil rights movement was coming to an end. So it ended in 1969, I believe. I'd have to double check, but I think the civil rights movement ended in 1969. This generation went through the Cold War, and they also went through the counterculture movement of the 1960s, which, by the way, I think is why we're so surprised, for those of you who follow my haircut update shows, why we've been so surprised to see these boomers fall in lockstep with this whole haircut agenda, because this was the counterculture generation. These were, if I'm not mistaken, these were the hippies, correct? Weren't these the hippies? These were the hippies. So you're talking hippies, Woodstock, counterculture, fight the power, power to the people. Like, how could that generation just morph into like this one massive cult? Like, we just don't get it. We're very confused. Like you've put up two totally different personas, and we don't know which one is actually true. Chat says the boomers are scared of dying because they know they're going to meet their maker, and everyone knows what their maker has in store for them. Chat says some boomers are like that because they were encouraged to be that way in the 1960s. It's by design. It is by design, but you know what's interesting? It didn't last for them. The rebellious spirit didn't last. And what happened was, when I was doing my research, essentially they experienced the greatest prosperity America has ever seen. So honestly, they had an opportunity to ride the uphill climb and the peak. And right now we're all on the decline together. We're all going down together. But that's not before they snatched up all the money and resources and wealth and property. So they lived through the end of the war, and then that prosperity that followed. Okay, because keep in mind, they're the baby boomers. So when everyone was coming home from the war and things were ending, there were all kinds of government programs and grants, GI bills that enabled them to buy houses, enabled them to have families. A lot of times their wife didn't have to work because they were so well taken care of during that time frame. So I think part of the reason that they are like this is they are the most delusional generation, but it's not really their fault that they're delusional. They were born at a time where things were actually improving. Yeah, they reaped all the benefits. Chat says they reaped all the benefits. Yes, they did. So to them, they don't understand what happened. They're like, what do you mean you're having trouble finding a job? This is America. I went out one Saturday afternoon and found a job, and I was with that company for 35 years before I retired. They still think that we're there, y'all. They still think that we're there. They still think that we are, hey, show up to the bank with $5,000 and they'll give you a home loan and you can just go get your house. What's your problem? They still think that we're there. They think that we're there. So what I was reading said that they also created an echo boom. So the millennials are the echo boom, meaning the baby boomers turned around and had a bunch of kids because they really believed that life was improving. They thought that we were on an uphill climb, when the truth of the matter is they lived through the uphill climb, the peak, and now we're all on the downhill slope together. So the millennials are the echo boom children of the baby boomers. And that's why the millennials feel so disenfranchised, because so many of us actually watched just that, you guys. Like my grandparents, both sets, my mom's parents and my dad's parents were married. They had all their children in their marriage, as far as we know, honey. Look, these men, the more I'm learning about these men of the past, mercy. But just for the sake of this show, they had their kids in their marriage, they had houses, okay? Then they gave birth to my parents. And then I grew up seeing a married couple, my parents, my uncles and aunts, all married, all homeowners. You understand? So when you grow up seeing marriages and family and homeowners all around you, and people with careers too, by the way, careers that they retired from, you think it's, well, of course that's available to me. And of course that's possible to me. That's all I saw growing, that's all I saw growing up. So I assumed it would be lockstep for me as well. And it was not. And I followed the playbook. No, the boomers had the millennials. Gen X wait, who had Gen X? I think the silent generation gave birth to Gen X, but I have to look that up. But anyway, I assumed, well, of course, these things are going to be available to me. They were available to everyone around me. So why wouldn't it be available to me as well? But it's a sad reality that it simply was not. I think they were born during a very false sense of security. They were born during a time where everything looked like it was getting better. And think about it, y'all. Most of them went from no telephone at all to a house phone, a corded house phone, to a wireless phone. Now they were really doing something. When they got the cordless phones, the battery charged phones. So they watched that happen. They watched no TV, then a black and white TV, then a color TV, then a movie theater. They watched all that happen. So to them, it was giving them the impression that life is gradually improving and getting better. And unfortunately, that was only true for a very, very short period of time. And by virtue of their narcissistic characteristics, they almost ensured that it would not continue on to the future. So let me back up just a little bit, because I jumped into the whys, but actually skipped over some of the traits. And I didn't mean to do that. I meant to bring this up earlier. So what are some of the key traits of boomer obstinates? Number one, you cannot talk to them, reason with them, or bring about any understanding. And oftentimes it almost seems like they don't want to understand. They don't want to get it. They don't want to process it. It's like, I don't care. Like whatever you're talking about, I really don't care. Remember when I said many, many moons ago that I don't think I'd be treated any differently from by a boomer Democrat than I would a boomer Republican. Basically, I said I believe the boomer Democrat and the boomer Republican would treat me exactly the same. That's exactly what I mean. Like just by virtue of who they think they are, political party aside, they're going to condescend towards me because they think that I'm nothing. So you can't talk to them, you can't reason with them, you can't bring about any understanding. It's like it's more than trying to talk to a brick wall. It's like trying to talk to a brick wall with an attitude, like a sentient brick wall with an attitude. So, it's a fruitless effort trying to talk to one of these people. Any attempt at conversation will be met with the silent treatment or hostility or both. You might get the hostility first, then the silent treatment, or you might get the silent treatment first, followed up by hostility. They are typically very smug, prideful, and arrogant, and you can't tell them that their stuff doesn't stink or that their stuff stinks. Rather, you can't tell them. They would never believe you. Um, they resist even small things or changes that would improve their lives. So I feel like here is where technology comes in a lot. I feel like so many of them would be different people and better people if they would welcome technology in. And it's not, again, we know tech has its problems. I complain about tech all the time, but it's little things, like Google, like just knowing how to look something up online would change a lot of their lives. Just a simple search, just a simple search of the internet would change their lives. But so many of them are highly resistant to the internet. They're highly resistant to technology, highly resistant. And I believe it's because they know on some level, technology will improve me. Technology will require me to make different decisions and make better choices. Technology is information. And if I accidentally get some new information, that's going to force me to try to do something different. And I don't want to do anything different. I'm correct. I'm right. I've never been wrong. So I don't even want any suggestions as to my possible differences. I just feel like it would open their world up so much. They are often very, very mean and rude people. They have a total lack of respect for the younger generations. They watch a lot of TV. So this is your TV generation. They complain about us and our phones, but this is the generation you'll always find squatting down in front of a TV, like stuck, planted in front of a TV. Okay? Always. They are completely obsessed with TV. They love TV. And hoarding is characteristic of this particular group. This is going to be the group that has a lot of problems with hoarding. And I think it's because this is the group that has been sold to and marketed to, even though that little graphic we were looking at says that they only get 10% of the marketing budget. Well, that may be true today. But if you think about it, this is the group that came up with TV in a way. And so they experienced the first commercials, the first propaganda, really. And they're the ones who I believe it's the most embedded into. By the time the millennials came along, well, Gen X they were kids at the time the boomers were. Wait, Gen X wasn't really born yet. They were starting to be born after 1964, but they were really the first ones to be exposed to the heavy propaganda and commercialism and consumerism. And buy this, buy. Like, I remember so much purchasing happening in the 80s and 90s. So much purchasing happening, and it wasn't all bad stuff that I saw coming home. It wasn't all bad. A lot of it was useful, but there was a lot of purchasing happening. Right. Gen X was latchkey. They were the latchkey kids and abandoned. So, I think that has a lot to do with it. So hoarding follows this group. And it's like this, they never learned. Like, I really still want to look further into this because there's got to be more to the story than, okay, they had TV and they were growing up in a time of economic prosperity. Something else changed them fundamentally. Because why does hoarding follow this group around? Like, I can tell you right now with absolute certainty, there are so many millennials sitting around going, I don't know what we're going to do with this house once mom and dad are no longer here. Because just like the actress Alicia Witt, we were just looking at, these kids probably aren't allowed into the house. They're definitely not allowed to clean it up because that's saying that you have a dirty house. It's not saying I love you and let me do this very labor intensive task for you now that you're getting older. Let me help you out with this because a clean home is also a safe home generally. Oh no, they're not going to allow that. They are going to refuse all help, just like Alicia Witt's parents. And they're going to refuse it until the day that they die and then leave the mess for their children to clean up. Okay. So, for example, just to kind of use my life as an example, so you all know I had a grandmother. She passed away in 2016 at age 94, and her 100th birthday just recently passed, actually. So, if she was still with us, she would be 100. Now, I don't think my grandmother did not display characteristics of boomer obstinance. She had her little ways, but not it wasn't anything like this. Um, and I wouldn't call her a hoarder necessarily. I think she just got old. I don't know. It's hard to say. But the point is, we still have her house, right? And my parents and my dad, which is one of her sons, they're not young people anymore. They're not young. I know they think they are, but they're not. So all the time, I'll say, Dad, do you want me to come help you? Because he's the one who brings it up. He'll be like, yeah, we're going to clean out your grandma's house eventually. But keep in mind, my grandmother has been gone for 6 years now. No, like 5 years and some change. She's been gone for 5 years. So every time I get on the phone with them, yeah, we're going to go clean out your grandma's house. And I say, well, do you want me to come down and help you? I'll help. We can make a whole thing out of it. We'll make it a day. We'll rent one of those. I forgot what they're called, but you can like rent like a dumpster and you can just throw your stuff in there and they come pick it up and haul it off. We can rent one of those. I'll come down, I'll bring a ton of trash bags, I'll bring my cleaning supplies, and we'll just make a whole day of it because right now the house is just sitting there. And I know that they're having trouble cleaning out her house because it's hard for them. That was their mom. She was all they had after their dad died for like 30 years. So it's hard for them to try to close that chapter. But as hard as it may be, they don't realize that they're not young people. So you just going to keep putting it off until one day you going to go. And what? You're just going to put that on me? So now I have to worry about cleaning out my grandmother's house and my parents' house in the future. And it's just so unfair. It's just like, how could you put that burden? How could you leave that burden to your kids? And I brought up the whole hoarding thing with my grandmother to say that she doesn't have a hoarded house, but she lived in that house for like 50 or 60 years. So there's like 50 or 60 years worth of just items, pictures, plates and cutlery, photo albums. Some of her old clothes are still there. Some of her shoes are still there. Like just 50 or 60 years worth of history, basically. So I get how challenging and difficult that would be. That's why I'm like, let me come. We'll make it fun. Like we'll put on some music. We'll cook food. We'll hang out. You know what I mean? Like it'll be a day. We'll make it a thing. Cleaning out Grand's house. Just not interested. Not interested. And I already know, like, I just know it's going to be one of those things that gets delayed until the very end. And then I'm going to be the one who has to go make decisions regarding this house. You know what I mean? And so it's not that I don't mind doing that, but we could be proactive about it right now while we're all still here. And the people who care the most about this house can do something about it while we're all still here versus just letting like the state eventually take it, which, by the way, this is kind of a sidebar, but it really matters a lot to me. In the Black community, we don't often get a lot of transfer of property, and I think this is why, because families, for whatever reason, we just won't do what it takes regarding these houses, and eventually the state will move in and take the house from you. All right, you don't want it, you don't want to keep it up, you don't want to at least convert it into an Airbnb or something like that. Okay, fine. Well, we'll take it from you. Next thing you know, the state has taken the house. There goes some family land and family property gone, just like that. Like, honestly, I would go live in my grandmother's house, but it needs serious renovations and things. It's a very old house, but still structurally very sound. I would go live in it, but it's not a safe place for me to live in right now. That's why I'm like, why don't we do something about this house? Let's fix it up. Let's make some money off of it. Let's Airbnb it out. Nope, can't move them. Can't move them. Can't be moved. Can't be moved. Can't be motivated. Can't be inspired. It's almost like they don't realize the urgency of life. They don't realize how urgent this all is. Life is urgent, you know? And it's like, again, like once again, like I started at the show, they think we have so much time. Okay. Chat says, I believe that they are the first generation who thought they would live forever, the first generation to be spoiled. To help them like that reminds them of how old they are, and that means close to death. Man, that's rough. Chat says, didn't they buy the house as an investment so they could have more money out of the equity later in life? I don't think anybody was thinking that far ahead. So I guess the short answer to your question is no. No, I'm thinking about the equity of the house. It's just like they live daydream, like they're daydreamers. And you can't wake them up out of that daydream and bring them back to reality. And I think another thing that happened to this generation is their jobs and stuff were so secure that to them, life is just a secure thing. Like my parents are always talking about their retirement benefits. They always are going to the doctor here and there and using their, I forget what they have. What is it? Is it Medicare, Medicaid? Yeah, La La Land. Exactly. Yeah. It's La La Land. And I think to myself when I hear them talking about their little appointments and things, I'm like, man, I wish I had me some healthcare like that. Sounds like you have great healthcare. So you understand. So I'm talking to two human beings who have had full careers that they both retired from. They're homeowners, got retirement income, and their health insurance is completely covered. So when they talk to their child, their millennial child, they just can't understand why life has been so stressful for me. They don't get it. They don't get that every time I get a new job, I'm like, let me try to get as many doctor's appointments out of the way as I possibly can before this whole thing comes to an end. That's my thought process. Ooh, goody, I get to go to the dentist again. Yay. Dentist appointment. Hooray. Finally. Ooh, let me go knock out all these other appointments too while I can, while my health insurance is still hot. Ooh, chat says they've weaponized their naivete. Yeah. So I'm trying to. The chat says PTE, you should start the process while your parents are alive of renovating your grandmother's house. I'm trying to, y'all. Like I'm trying. Like I'm one of the few people in this world who actually likes to clean up. I don't mind it. So I could see myself spending a whole entire day just going room by room, keeping those things that are important and valuable and then disposing of everything else and cleaning it up and determining how much fixing this house actually needs. Does it need a new roof, new floor? It's one of those that's I don't know what they're called, but they're elevated. So, like, everything is underneath the house. So, if I'm not mistaken, houses like these, like, all their pipes are underneath the house. So, if you wanted to fix a pipe, you would actually have to go like under the house, basically. It's hard to explain, but everything is like under the house. So, it's that style of house. So it's old. It's an old house, but and it needs a lot of work, but the bones are still very, very good. Um Chat says, OMG, not the only one gleefully going to the dentist with insurance. Oh no, it's a great day. When I get my insurance cards for some new job, y'all, I feel like I hit the lottery. I'm like, yes, healthcare. Yay. Healthcare. Says this video needs a couple of follow-up videos. There are so many topics to build under this topic. For sure, we'll talk about it more, and be sure to let me know exactly which ones y'all want me to pull out, and I will, because I think it's so important. It's so freaking sad, man. It's also very, very sad. Like, so the impacts, what are the impacts of all of this? Well, wait, let's go to the why. So I just did the traits. So let's talk a little bit more about the why. So we talked about that they're possibly the most delusional because of the effects of movies and television and things like that. The large number of them, I believe, gives them a certain strength in numbers. And this is something I hadn't considered. But when I think about it, like, my parents have more friends than I do. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think I feel some type of way about that. Like, they literally have a social circle, especially my dad. Like, he he has friends, you know, more than I do. And I'm like, dang, man, what happened? But now I realize what happened. There's a lot of them. There's tons of them. So when your cohort is huge, you run into a lot of people your age. So it also explains why, no matter, y'all, I'm telling you, no matter what age I am, no matter what age I've been, I have always been the youngest person on my team, no matter what. When I was 25, I was the youngest person. When I was 30, I was the youngest person. When I was 35, I was the youngest person. And here, going on 40 later on this year, I'll probably still be the youngest person on my team. And it's something that I just can't process. Hey, thank you, Aware, for the super chat. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for your support of the channel, and I appreciate you being here as well. But I'm always the youngest one in the room in terms of my work teams. And it never really made a lot of sense to me, but it's starting to make sense. It's because there's so many boomers and so many of them are in positions of power that they group up. And this actually goes right along with corporate cults too. They're the group the most likely to cult up, but they cult up and they only allow a new person or a young person in every so often. And I would be that young person coming in every so often. It's like, fine, we'll open the door for one of them. And they open the door for me, terrorize me, and then I leave. But no matter what, I'm always the youngest one. And I think that is so strange and a very strange phenomenon that I've never quite been able to pinpoint until now. So their large number gives them strength. It's almost like they know they exist. They know the others exist, if that makes sense. And then they didn't give birth to enough replacements for us to have a lot of friends. For the millennials and, well, see, they didn't give birth to Gen X. So I'll just have to say the millennials, they didn't have enough of us to truly make up for what we would need to have strong social circles and strong friendship groups. So, for example, between my two parents, they just had me when they were really supposed to have like four of us. That would have been replacement, at least two. Two would have been at least replacement, but four really would have added to the pot. So I know some of you come from big families and things, but a lot of you can probably think of quite a few of your friends who they're either the only child or one of two children between their parents. So that's not replacement. Okay. Those of you who are having trouble dating, having trouble finding your mate, well, that's because there's not enough of you out there. Mathematically, you're going to have a tough time. You need to wait on the first round of divorcees to come through. Then you'll have your pick. And I think that'll be a good pick, because he or she will have been married before. They've been been on that rodeo, and hopefully they picked up a couple of good habits from married life. So yeah, I think it's good. Just wait on the first crop of divorcees to surface and pick your mate from there, because there just aren't enough of us. Like every family was supposed to have about 4 or 5 kids. So there's that. That could be a show all by itself. Then other reasons why, like how do they possibly get this way? How did this happen? And I feel like I saw it in the chat earlier, and I have it here on my notes too, but just pure plain jealousy. Just jealousy of many different things. So keep in mind, in many ways, they thought they were the greatest generation ever because, they came off the war and civil rights movement, and then all this new tech started showing up, and all this new stuff was flooding into the world, and they were getting jobs and getting promotions. So they really thought very highly of themselves. And some of them are achieved people. I'm not saying that they didn't achieve anything. It's not what I'm saying at all, actually. But they were supposed to be the ones to hold on to those accolades, not you. Like there really wasn't supposed to be anything great after them. So when you come along and you start doing great things or new things or different things, it's almost like they feel threatened in their greatness. They feel like they can't hold the title anymore, that you might actually be better than them. So in particular, for example, if your parent didn't teach you something, but then somehow you now know how to do it and you're very good at it, they're not going to like that. For example, cooking. If you weren't taught how to cook, no one taught you. You were brought up on TV dinners and fast food. And then now, as an adult, somehow you're an amazing cook. And your boomer, obstinate parents find out about that. They're not going to be thrilled for you. They're not going to be happy for you. It's like, how did you learn how to cook? Nobody taught you that. It's like, it is just the strangest behavior, y'all. Because to me, like if you have a child, part of the whole point of doing that and engaging in that is elevating that child to greatness. Like you want them to be great. You want them to have more, do more, be better than you. Like you don't want to see them worse off than you. But I feel like this group, in a way, gets a lot of satisfaction out of seeing us suffer. And I can't quite put my finger on why, because the question becomes, what did we do to you? We didn't do anything to you. We didn't even ask to be here. So it's like this serious beef. It's like, what are you so upset about? What did we do? And one of the great ironies is this. So a very strong okay boomer phrase is when they find themselves complaining about technology and, kids today and their technology and things like that. But the irony is they're the ones who laid the foundation for the technology. They're the ones who laid the wires. They're the ones who laid the wires, lines. They're the ones who put up the towers so all this stuff could happen. Now it's happening and it's almost like they're mad. Madify, my love. Says, I'm from Europe. Forgot that freedom of speech is taboo in the US and highly dictated. I don't know if that's directed at me, Madify, my love, but I appreciate the super chat. And I put you in time out because you ask strange questions that are way off topic sometimes, honey. Try to stay on topic, okay? You know I love you dearly. We've had this conversation before. You like to bot out on me, and I don't know why. It's weird. Do you drink? You be drinking Mattify when you watch the show? Is that what it is? You know I love you dearly though. But you're back. Welcome back, and thank you for the super chat, my love. I appreciate it, okay? Don't bot out on me. It looks like he unplugged and plugged back in, just like I wanted him to. All right? Much love, and thank you for the super chat, okay? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Free speech is not banned here, but I'll be doing a show, and Mattify will be like, "Does anyone have purple toes?" And it's like, "What? Baby, what?" Stay on topic. Stay. It's a bribe. We love you, Mattify. Okay, it's all love. Mattify's been around for a long time. He just recently started botting out on me. I don't know what's up, but I still love you though. All right. So, and thank you again. Where was I? Mattify just threw me all off. I don't even know what I was talking about. Let me look through my notes here. I don't remember, but I do think that I've covered pretty much. Oh, no, I have one more thing I want to talk about, the impact of all this. Chat says, PTE, I think things change too fast for them to hold the reins, so they drag their feet because they can't keep up. Wow. Whew. It's like, well, I can't keep up with the system, so I'll slow it down. Wow, man. That's really deep. The chat says we were born when they didn't want to change society. Wow. It's almost like I think the world that they would have been happy stopping with is the world where we had VCRs, cordless phones, and that was kind of like it. Like it's in terms of like tech. So I think if the world had stopped right around 99, 2000, they'd be very, very happy. I don't think that they were planning on all these different changes to come about. I don't think anyone could have foreseen some of the changes, but you know, they must never forget that they laid the foundation for a lot of this stuff. They just didn't think we would innovate on that foundation. We were supposed to accept the foundation as it was. We weren't supposed to improve upon it and make it better. So, those of us who are currently millennials or Gen X or even Gen Z listening, you really have to watch for this, especially millennials as we get older, to make sure we don't become this and make sure we don't turn into this because we are their children. And I've already seen these characteristics out of a lot of millennials already. All you got to do is give them a little bit of money. That's it. Give them a little bit of money and a little bit of stability and security, and they completely change as people. Completely change. So, one thing I realized I was thinking about the other day, a lot of people are counterculture until you give them a little bit of money and a little bit of job security. And then all of a sudden, all their rebellion goes away. All that big talking goes away. That protest energy, that protest spirit all goes away. If you give them just a little bit of money and a little bit of job security, it goes away. It's very interesting. So most people's principles are made of nothing. They're made of dust. Dusty principles, okay? That just blow away with the slightest wind, not rooted in anything. All right, so let's close out with a few things in terms of how this has impacted us. And then we will get out of here. I appreciate you all. It tickled me that you all were very interested in this show because I literally just said it in passing and y'all were like, do boomer obstinance. I'm like, oh, okay. You're like, that's great, PTE, but can you do boomer obstinance? I'm like, okay, you got it. So I'm glad you all were interested in this show. And if you want me to do follow-ups, I'd be more than happy to. You just got to let me know which specific aspects you would like me to follow up with. And I certainly will. So let's talk a little bit about the impacts of being raised by people with this mentality or people that have the traits of boomer obstinance. So I don't think there's any words to express the trauma of pushing up against such strong resistance. as a young person. And as a young person, it's very confusing because it's almost like like we were lied to in so many different ways. And one of the ways that we were lied to is in being told that if you just use your words with people, that you can actually get somewhere with them. So we were raised to use our words and express ourselves. And when we did that with the people who taught us to do that, typically we were met with silent treatments. That's what I got a lot, especially as a kid. The silent treatment. That is one of the worst things you can do to a child, I think, because it teaches a child many different things. It teaches a child, number one, that your thoughts can upset people. And your thoughts can upset people to the point where they'll stop speaking to you. So before you express your thought, you need to make sure you really want to express it because the thought that you could express could make this person stop talking to you. So that's the first thing that you teach your child when, excuse me, or that's the first thing we were taught, those of us who were raised with this particular set of behaviors. We were just simply taught that your thoughts, the way you feel about things, can be so upsetting that they could sever the most important thing you have between parent and child, and that is the communication bond or the communication avenue. So be careful with what you say because you could say something that would just make me stop talking to you. So that's the first thing it taught us to do. It taught us to doubt ourselves, doubt our thoughts, second guess ourselves. It taught us to go along with the agenda of rude and sometimes evil people, you know? It's hard to say. I don't know if I'm going to label evil so quickly. Some of you would automatically and instantly label evil, and that's perfectly fine. But it taught us that if a person is displaying mean or rude characteristics towards you, don't upset them. And the best thing that you can do is just kind of stay quiet and shut up because you don't want to upset them. So you basically taught us that your words can be upsetting to people. So use them wisely, which I mean, our words can be upsetting to people. So use them wisely, but they're not supposed to be so upsetting that they could cause you to stop speaking to a person. Especially not when you're a little kid. Like, what could a child ever really say to you to make you stop talking to them? Really think about that, y'all, especially now that you're adults. What could a child say to you to cause you to stop talking to them for hours or days? A child? Really? You see what I mean? So it taught us that our words were very heavy, and it taught us that our words carried a lot of weight and that our words could affect and impact even adults. So be careful with what you say and don't express any opinions, viewpoints, perspectives, wants, wishes, or needs because you could upset the adult. Remember when I told y'all on my other channel that some of us went through things where we weren't hit, we weren't touched, and we weren't screamed at? Never hit, never touched, never screamed at. This would be an example of that. Wasn't hit. I didn't get spankings. When my friends would tell me about their spankings, I'm like, wow, that sounds intense. I didn't get spankings. I was never violated in a sexual manner. And no one raised their voice at me. I didn't get screamed at either. But what I did get were silent treatments from one parent in particular. And I'll get into all that. And part of the reason I put off talking about my parents for so long is because, like, the way I want to title that stream, to be honest with you guys, the way I want to title that stream is perfectly fucked up. Because that's what it is. Because I've literally had 50% of what some would consider like an ideal childhood, like borderlining on perfect. You know what I mean? In terms of a circumstance that a child can grow up in. Like outside looking in, people made so many assumptions about me in my life because they thought that am or come from this perfect little family. And in some ways, they're not wrong. Like in some ways, they're 50% not wrong. And then the other 50% has consisted of this right here. So it's very hard for me to talk about my parents also because believe it or not, I actually do love them. Like I still care about them. When they leave this world, I will be completely destroyed. Seriously. Like the devastation will be too complete for me. So that's kind of how I feel about them. I would defend them to the very end. You know what I mean? I'd lay down my life for them. That's the way it is, just what it is. But it doesn't change the fact that I went through this. I got 50% perfection, 50% pure hell. Versus some people who got 100%. Some people got like close to 100% perfection. Some people got 100% pure hell. And I actually think you're luckier because at least you know what it is. At least you know what you're dealing with if you got 100% pure hell or even 100% pure perfection. At least you know what you're dealing with. But imagine getting half and half. Like literally some of the most perfect set of circumstances that you can launch from, and then also some of the most nightmarish in the same lived experience. Okay. So that's why I really don't talk about them much because I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm even interpreting the situation correctly. But what I finally came to realize was this: the fact that you have doubt is reason enough. Like you can't say definitively yes or no, you say maybe. So saying maybe is enough to talk about it because you're not discounting the good things that they did and have done for you. But these other things did happen. They absolutely happened and they need to be talked about. And you might be able to free some people when you do that. So we'll do that. We're just going to do it on permission to exist once I figure out these silly little emojis that they want me to create for y'all. Help me, God. I think I'm just going to do like 5 different color blocks. And those are going to be my custom emojis, just a bunch of different color squares because I just can't. Thank you, Mattify. It says PTE, it's all about the society you're coming from. Absolutely. Well, tell us more. What's it like in Europe? How do parents behave in Europe and in the UK? All right. So there's that. So those of us who didn't grow up learning to doubt ourselves became complete total rebels and problem children. So you know how I was telling you guys, I often have trouble spotting narcissists at first, but then when I see them, I cut them off at the root. Well, I think this is part of the reason why, because growing up, I literally really did have like a good childhood, like a good portion of my childhood was in fact good. But another side of it, it's almost like 2 sides of the same coin. The other side of the coin was just some things that are just almost indescribable. I almost can't even describe them to you guys. So it's no wonder then you have trouble identifying disordered people because you literally were brought up with one half good, one half bad. So of course you see the good in people because you've seen the good out of people who offered you both good and bad. They offered you both. So of course you would naturally say, well, I see this bad behavior out of this person, but I know other people who display bad behaviors, but also have these good qualities about them. So, of course, you have trouble picking out and selecting people and screening them properly at first because you were raised in a duality. So, you're going to struggle with it. But the good news is I do eventually see it. That is the positive. I do eventually see it, just not always right away. And then finally, the final impact is that this behavior shapes the policies that crush us. So most of you know I have another channel, Pettynomics. Plan on doing another video over there very soon about your mayor, Eric Adams of New York, who keeps begging the office workers to come back so like the shoe shiners can live. And he did that a couple of months ago. And I brought it up then I kind of left it alone. I was like, whatever. But he just brought it up again. So it tells me that he really believes, he really believes that It is the responsibility of the office workers to come in and spend their money with these little small businesses so they don't go under. And there's just so much wrong with that premise. And I really want to break that apart. So I'm going to do that on Pettynomics. But it just kills me, man. Because they basically have plans for your money. That's what bothers me the most. So just because I work in the office, I got to come spend all my money at the donut shop, the little cafe, the deli, the shoe shiner, and the dry cleaner. He brings up the dry cleaner a lot. So just because I have the money to spend, I have to come spend it with you so you don't die. But if I'm broke or if I'm running low, can I go to the dry cleaner and ask the dry cleaner to loan me a little something? Can I go to that same deli that I hit up every single day at lunchtime and say, "Hey, I'm a little short on rent. Can y'all look out for me?" Will they hit me up? Will they give me a couple $100 and say, "Here you go, good luck"? Because that's what a real community would do. They want to talk about all this community. Community goes back and forth. So if it's my job to keep the local pie shop open, even though I don't eat pie, it's my job to keep her open. Okay, so I go in on Sundays and I buy a pie from her. Well, then the next time I'm a little short on cash, can I stop in the pie shop and get some money? She's probably going to say no. Like, don't. Let me just save that for that channel. Let me just save it because it's just don't get me started, y'all. Don't. This is why all these channels keep getting born, because I have to get this stuff out of my system and off of my chest. Okay. Let me scroll your comments really quick and then we'll get out of here. Okay. Welcome everyone to the show. Oh, I forgot these things go all the way back to the very, very beginning. Never mind. I forgot they go back to the start. I know I used to do that. I just stopped for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I'll get into it again. I know we are all so triggered, right? Because a lot of us have been through this. We lived this. We lived through this nightmare, man. And it's like, there's so much guilt. For me, anyway, I can't speak for anyone else, but there's so much guilt because I really do love my parents and I want the best for them. And I would say I spent a good majority of my youth, like trying to become successful so I could take care of them later on in life. And it wasn't until I sat down with a therapist like a year or two ago. My poor therapist, they don't last long, because when I tell them the whole story of like how I was raised and the different issues I'm dealing with, they all look at me like, my schooling didn't go this far. And I look at them like, yeah, I know. I just thought I'd try. I figured I'd come in here and give it a shot. They're just looking at me like, we didn't study this in school. I'm like, I know. Tell me about it. But dang, I forgot what I was talking about. Tried to crack a joke and then lost my damn train of thought. I was saying that we've all lived through this. We've been through this. We've experienced this. Oh, I was talking about the guilt. Oh, no. Now I remember what I was saying. One therapist who was actually able to swim through all of it said, "Why are you taking on so much responsibility for your parents?" And I remember the question kind of paused me. I was like, in my mind, I remember thinking, well, what do you mean? And they were like, well, are your parents invalids? I was like, no, they're not invalid. They're both healthy and spry and, they still work kind of or whatever. And, because retirees can't really work. They can't make over a certain dollar amount per year. So they still kind of work, but not really. I was like, no. And so the therapist was like, so why do you feel like you need to be the one to like be responsible for them right now? And I was like, I don't know. And he was basically like, they're adults, honey. They are adults. Like they need to figure it out in this life. You don't need to be trying to figure out. Basically, you're trying to be their parent, basically. Like I was running around with the mindset of a mother trying to figure out how she's going to take care of her two kids. And it's like that therapist had to correct that inverted thought process, basically. And show me that you're thinking like you're the adult. And I was young at the time, y'all. I was like 21, 22, super stressed out about how I'm going to make enough money to take care of my parents. And he was like, "Why are you doing that? Like, that is not your job. That's not your responsibility. That's deeply out of order, deeply out of order." And that was actually very helpful for me. But one thing I noticed is that they have no problem presenting like wounded birds. And I think part of where mine comes from is, every time I talk to them on the phone, for the most part, they're always presenting me with a problem. And it's typically a problem that I can't fix. It's something that I can't do anything about. They would actually have to be the ones to fix it. But they present it to me with almost a certain level of pleading. If you can't understand what I'm saying pleading, Pleading. There's a certain level of pleading to it, like, help me, please, help me, please. And it's conveyed. Like, I very much feel it. You know what I mean? I very much feel the cry for help. So I hear the cry, I feel the cry, and then I feel motivated to do something about it. Versus people who might hang up the phone with their parents and go, well, they're going through this little issue, but it sounds like they haven't handled, or it sounds like they have it taken care of. But there's always a certain level of wounded bird to the phone call. And it leaves me feeling like, well, shit, I got to do something. Like, man, okay, maybe if I just make a little bit more money, then I can get my master's degree, and then I can get a better job, and then I can like start like saving, and then, maybe I can do this and I can do that, and I'll probably have to move that around. It's like, why are you doing that? You are the child, and they're not invalids. Invalid, INVALID. And I do that because sometimes it sounds like I'm not pronouncing words correctly to me. Like when I say them, it doesn't sound like they're coming out right. They're not invalid. They're not differently abled or disabled, if you will. They're not that. Um, they're not mentally retarded. So, for all accounts, the only thing they are is aged. They're just getting up there in age, but they're not incapable, though. And, oh, perfect way to put it. It's a subtle guilt trip. It's so subtle, y'all. It's so subtle. It says parentification of their children. This is something I went through after trying to take care of them, racking your brain to figure it out. After you come up with some good ideas, then a few days later, it only gets worse because their problems get even bigger. Yep. Yeah. Ooh, the racking of the brain. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. The racking of the brain. And I think in some ways that's what they want. They just want you worried about them. They don't want you to actually solve the problem. They want the worry. And I'm like, if you only knew, my whole life has been spent worrying about you. My whole entire life, like ever since I was a little girl, I've been worried about my parents, y'all. Now, that could just be a feature of my personality. It could just be a function and a feature of my personality. But the more I think about it, I think this wounded bird thing has been presenting itself for much longer than I realize. Because my whole life, my thought process has been, I have to help. I need to fix this. And I'm the one to fix it. Now, imagine that. Now, my parents are much older than me because my parents actually waited longer than people of their generation to have me. So, I mean, I guess that's not giving away that much information. So, my dad is 38 years older than me. My mom's 33 years older than me. So, technically, I'm supposed to be a Gen Xer, technically, but they just waited to have me. So, imagine that. Imagine someone who arrived 33 years into a person's life and 38 years, respectively, being the one who has to actually fix their lives. So you're going to wait on the person who just showed up to come of age, grow up, graduate, go to college, get a job to fix the problems that existed before they even got here. So that's really a thought for me. That's really more of a thought for me. Like, why do you feel like you could even fix that? Like, that's kind of a silly thought. It's kind of silly to believe that you could fix the lives of two people who were here long before you were. you're really technically just coming of age. Like, well, not just coming of age, but like I'm just now hitting the age range where I'd actually be able to make a difference. You know what I mean? Career wise, money wise, stability wise. Who am I kidding? I'm not that stable yet. We're reaching the level of stability that I would like to have. We're getting there slowly but surely. But what I'm saying is, like, I would have been ineffective at age 21, is what I'm saying. Totally ineffective. But why? It doesn't matter though. Why would you think that you'd be the one to fix that? That's like me having a baby today and hoping that this baby that I give birth to today is the one who's going to fix all of my problems in 20 or 30 years. Like, how silly. Like, what were they doing all the time while they were waiting for you to grow up? You see what I mean? Like, it's a big rewiring that a lot of us have to do. Sometimes when I'm watching different financial coaches and things like that, they get really pissed off with athletes who buy their parents' homes and buy their parents' cars and things like that. They don't all get pissed off with them, but a lot of them do, because they're like, what has your parent been doing all this time? Now, I'm not that harsh, because I recognize a lot of those boys come from just straight up poverty. And so they wanted to kind of reward the one who stuck by them the whole time. So I'm not here to get into the morality or the ethics of all that. I'm just here to let you know that a lot of financial people get pissed off with these athletes because they're like, so your parent was just sitting around, and what were they going to do if you never made it to the NFL or the NBA or baseball league or whatever? What were they going to do? They were just going to do nothing, or they were putting it all on you. So they don't like that. They don't like what that implies. You know what I mean? But again, I get it. I understand, whatever. We're not here to debate that. I just wanted to bring that out to you. The spirit of the idea is, why is the child the one fixing it? That's the spirit of the idea. Like, if I ever have a baby, my baby is not being born to fix my life. Like, I need to be fixing my life now, and post baby, continue to work on my life. So by the time my child comes of age, the only thing they really have to worry about is setting up their life. You know what I mean? The only thing they really have to worry about is what career they want to pursue and what type of education they want to seek out and where they want to settle in and what they want to make of their life. I don't want my child sitting around worrying about me the way that I've sat around worrying about my parents. I'll forbid it. Like, I'll absolutely forbid it. Like, don't you dare sit around worrying about me. Like, I've had all these years to worry about me. It's your turn now. You worry about you. I will take care of mom so you can be mentally free to live your life. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'll look that poem up. So, then they turn around and shape the policies and things that affect our lives but benefit them. Things like housing policies and things of that nature. So that's why all of this matters. That's why it's all important. I think this was a very good conversation to have. I'm glad you guys wanted to have it, because I think it's been quite therapeutic for me as well. Quite therapeutic. I think it's kind of sad. It's a sad situation that we're in. Um, I think the reality won't hit this bunch until life is just about to conclude, until it's just about over. And I think that's when they'll go, wow, I really wasted all this time with my child, or I just wasted all this time, period, and didn't really take life seriously. And now life is getting ready to conclude. And what do I really have to show for it? What legacy am I leaving behind? What memories have I made? This group is highly dictated by fear as well. They are very, very fear-based group, very, very scary people, very, very scary, very afraid in general, afraid of everything, you know. just scared. And it's sad because it's like, I understand a healthy fear that keeps you safe, but the fear that cripples you and makes it to where you can't even do little things in life, you can't even enjoy simple things, like that's not a healthy fear. And they have that type of fear to where they can't even enjoy little things like every 4th of July. Oh my God, like clockwork. Every 4th of July, I get the phone call and the conversation is the same every time. And I'm informed that I won't say which parent. I'll just say this parent. I'm informed that this parent is not going anywhere because they like to shoot on the 4th of July and they like to shoot up in the air. And daughter dear, don't you know what happens to bullets when they go straight up in the air? Well, they have to come back down somewhere. I know. Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, I know. It's 4th of July. I know. They shoot up in the I know. They like to shoot real guns. I know. Real guns. I know. Yeah, they shoot them right in the air. I know. Yeah, I know. So just stay in the house, get under a blanket, go into a bomb shelter, and just huddle there until it's all over, okay? Like, oh my God. Like, just the transmission of fear to the child. I just don't understand it. And there are times where I want to say, if this is how you feel about the world, why did you have me? Why? If this is how you feel about the world, why did you have me? Why? I wouldn't have had me. If I was this scared of the world, I wouldn't have had me. Why would you do that? Why would you bring a child somewhere that you're super afraid of? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So I guess what I'm saying is if you're going to have a child, don't instill fear into them, instill courage, instill hope, instill joy to some extent, instill what you can. Yeah, you want them to be smart, but you don't want them to be so afraid that they're scared to move. See, he's botting out again. Mattify with the $20 super chat. Happy Black History Month. Thank you. Have you learned SMTH new on the road? Have I learned something new on the road? What road, honey? Just in general, like the road of life? My Mattify. Mattify. Thank you for the super chat, my dear. I don't understand the back half of your statement. This is what I mean, though. This is what I mean by that botting out, but it's cool. I appreciate it. You can keep asking questions like that if you want to. If you're going to attach a super chat to them, go for it, honey. I appreciate you. Thank you. I might actually get paid out from this channel this month. Y'all know we don't get paid till it hits $100. And when you're raking in like 28 cents a day, it takes a while to get up to that 100. So thank you. I might actually get paid out this month. I appreciate that. My Mattify. Bless your little heart. Bless your little heart. All right. So, guys, I think that's just about it because I'm about to start laughing now. Now I'm tickled. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope this is what you wanted. I hope this is what you were looking for. And, as we wrap and you listen to the playback, if there's a specific comment that stood out to you that you want me to go more in depth on this topic, I will do that for you. And we'll just turn it into a little series. Y'all laughing at that teacher. It's like, Mattify, put that pencil down. No, don't try to poke his eye out. Put the pencil down. Just put your head down and go to sleep. Yeah, just take a nap. Put your jacket over your head. Very good. Very, very good. Night, night. And with that, you all, I hope you all have a great evening. What is today? Sunday? So y'all got to go to work tomorrow. Have a great work week. I'm sure I'll be back with a haircut update on this channel sometime during this week. And we'll just take it from there. So I appreciate you all. I appreciate you too, Mattify. All right. I want you to take a nap, go to bed, and we'll talk again very, very soon. All right. Bye.